Every single business owner in the UAE needs to get an Emirates ID. If they want to have an open corporate bank account, that is, which most of them do need that, and they want to be in control of that account themselves, that means that person needs to get an Emirates ID and the subsequent residence visa that comes with that. So each person who sets up here has 3 choices. And in today's video, we'll explain what those 3 choices are and which one suits you best. Hi, I'm Richard Rodriguez and I'm with Connect Group. We've been helping companies set up the right way since 2016 and we're continuing to do so. Okay, so you have engaged with a good consultant such as ourselves and you're getting ready to open up your business in the UAE. Keep in mind, the corporate bank account is one of the most important parts of the process. And to open one, the person who is going to have control of that account and the ability to open it needs to have an Emirates ID. So the Emirates ID, which comes with a residency visa, is a national identification document. It's a physical card which has a chip in it and it has the details of who is sponsoring your residence here and some personal details about yourself. So each person who sets up a business here has a choice of 3 different types of visa. And the choice is important, and it's important for the reasons I'll mention as follows. So for those who are looking to relocate to the UAE permanently and spend more than, call it 6 months here, that person may be veering towards an employment visa. But an investor who's simply setting up here to have a very tax-efficient vehicle and maybe a holding company, for instance, that person does not need as much access to credit from the banks. So that person may be veering off towards an investor visa. The reason that banks here on the personal accounting side of things prefer you to have an employment visa is because of a document which is called a salary certificate. This is a document that states who you work for. Even as the owner of the company, you can make one of these with yourself as an employee, and it states what you earn per month. This is essentially verification to the bank when you go to get a credit card or finance a car or perhaps even mortgage a property. They will ask you for this document, and on an investor visa, you cannot get this document. You cannot produce it for yourself even as the owner of the company. If that sounds like you and you are veering towards the employment visa, there's a couple different choices you have for types of an employment visa. Firstly, you have skilled, which simply means that you have an attested bachelor's degree from a university of any country, but it must be attested. And you need to provide that to immigration to be under the skilled category. Managers, directors, C-level executives, these kinds of positions typically do even require a attested bachelor's degree. So those people are most likely going to end up with the skilled category. And banks will take that into consideration when trying to access huge amounts of credit, such as a mortgage or a very expensive car loan. However, if you still want to get an employment visa and you don't have a bachelor's degree, not to worry, you can still get one. However, it will have to be designated as unskilled, which doesn't mean you don't have any skills. It just means you don't have the bachelor's degree to prove that you are in the skilled category. So if you're planning on starting a business here in the UAE and not sure which type of visa applies best to you, book a call with us, links in the description, and we'll walk you through the right choice. Another important factor when choosing a different type, whether that be investor, employment, it really makes a huge difference if you are planning on sponsoring relatives or dependents. So if you're moving to the UAE permanently with family, let's say you have 2 kids and a wife that you need to sponsor under your Emirates ID, if you go with an investor visa, there is a 3,000 dirham deposit needed to be paid to immigration per visa. So if you're coming with 3 dependents, that's 9,000 dirhams you'll have to pay to immigration. It is refundable, but only refundable when those people cancel their visas. So that's an additional upfront expense that many people don't know, that the 2 types of visas that you as the shareholder can choose from affects how much it's going to cost to sponsor your family. If you go with an employment visa, be that skilled or unskilled, you can still sponsor your family members and you can avoid the expensive deposits needed to be paid to immigration. So in my opinion, based on my experience, 90% of people looking to move to the UAE, whether it be as a shareholder or a partner in a company, if you're moving with family, go with an employment visa. The other reason I would suggest an employment visa is perhaps you are going to test out the UAE, spend say 6 months of your time here, but not a full 12. So let's circle back to banking for a second. If you are planning on taking out car finance or mortgaging a property or even wanting to build a credit score through a credit card, it's not impossible to do so on an investor visa. However, the burden of proof that the banks need is extremely extensive, it takes longer, and there's more administrative work involved by you, all of which you don't necessarily want to deal with when you first move to a country. So an employment visa would be better for that person who's moving here, doesn't necessarily need a fancy mortgage or a car loan right away, but perhaps they would like the option to have that in future. Then go with an employment visa. We've been setting up businesses in the UAE since 2016. We know what mistakes lie in wait for you if you don't watch this video with Kate.